The house was full. Her role was gone for Rosa Delgado. The quiet after everyone left was the loudest sound she'd ever heard. This is what happens when the job you never applied for suddenly retires you. Rosa Delgado's identity was written in lunchboxes and laundry cycles, in permission slips signed, in fevers cooled in the dead of night. Her life was a symphony of need, the beautiful, exhausting music of motherhood. She was the calendar, the heartbeat, the quiet engine of the home. Then, one by one, the notes of that symphony faded. The last child's car pulled out of the driveway, headed for a dorm 8 states away, and the silence that rushed in to fill the space was absolute. At first, it felt like a vacation. She could drink coffee while it was still hot, watch whatever she wanted on TV, but the freedom felt hollow, like wandering through a museum of her own former life. Every room held a ghost, a scuff mark on the floor from a teenager's chair, a faint sticker residue on a window. Her husband, still kind, still there, had his own world of work and routine. "You must be enjoying the peace, Rosa," he'd say. She'd nod, a smile plastered on her face. How could she explain that the peace felt like a kind of erasure? She tried to fill the hours. She organized closets with a military precision no one would ever appreciate. She cooked elaborate meals for 2, when for 20 years she'd cooked quick meals for 5. The identity after family roles shift wasn't just a concept. It was the empty passenger seat in her car. It was the unused milk in the fridge. The crisis wasn't dramatic. It was in the mundane. She found herself standing in the grocery aisle, staring at a box of her son's favorite cereal. There was no reason to buy it, but her hand reached out anyway. In that moment, she felt like a relic, a machine left running after the factory had closed. One afternoon, she sat at the too-clean kitchen table. She realized her days were now a series of tasks to pass time. She had spent a lifetime building a world for others, and now that world had graduated. She was left standing in the empty auditorium, wondering what her own act was supposed to be. The turning point came from a dusty corner of the garage. A box labeled Rosa's Art Stuff College. With hands that felt strangely hesitant, she opened it. Inside, charcoal pencils, stiff with age. A sketchbook, its pages blank after the first few. A younger version of herself, ambitious and messy, stared back from those old, smudged drawings. That night, she didn't cook dinner. She ordered pizza, something the old Rosa would never have done. And she laid out a single piece of charcoal and a fresh sheet of paper on the kitchen table. The first mark was a clumsy, trembling line. Then another. She wasn't drawing anything in particular, just remembering the feeling of making a mark for no reason other than it felt true. She didn't become an artist. She became a person who allowed herself to try. She signed up for a community gardening plot, getting her hands dirty for her own joy, not for a school project. She started taking long, aimless walks, not for exercise, but for noticing the way the light hit a certain brick wall, the shape of clouds. She began to rebuild a vocabulary for herself, not as Mum, but as Rosa, a woman who liked silence when she chose it, who enjoyed the slow unfurling of a fern in her garden, who could spend an hour on a bad drawing and feel utterly, perfectly spent. The house was quieter now, but the quiet was no longer an absence. It was a space she was slowly, tenderly learning to fill with her own voice. We often build our lives around being essential to others. When that season ends, it doesn't leave an empty space, it leaves a blank canvas. The most terrifying and beautiful question isn't who needs me, but who am I when no one is watching? The answer is painted not in grand gestures, but in the quiet, curious strokes we allow ourselves to make for the very first time. If Rosa's story echoes in the quiet of your own home, consider sharing it with someone who might be navigating a similar change. Sometimes, hearing another's journey makes our own path a little clearer. Thanks for watching.